Welcome everyone to tonight's lecture of Winy Maas from MVRDV. Super happy to have you here, Winy, in my last year. As you already pointed out, it is my last year. But most of all, first, I want to thank the Jeffrey Fines and his wife, Andrea Katz, for the sponsoring of this lecture. They established the Jeffrey Fine and Andrea Katz Endowed Lecture Fund in 2019 with the purpose of providing financial support for an annual public lecture by a distinguished practitioner, which I think we can say here, of architecture. Jeff has been a member of the Weitzman Board of Advisors since 2015, and he is the partner of Peer Fines Associates and a member of the American Institute of Architects and National Trust of Historic Preservation. He has also been a juror at Columbia University and City College of New York. We're super grateful, Jeffrey, you know that, and it is an amazing thing for the students to be able to get international architects in. So really, really happy. Yes, let's do it. Equally happy to have the M of MVRDV here, Winy Maas. And I'm going completely off script here because I actually met Winy when he was working for Rem Koolhaas. And I remember you were so excited about, well, I think you were excited about working for Rem, that I also applied at Rem Koolhaas' office. And then I got a job offer. And then I found it too daunting and left for New York. Like, that wasn't daunting. But yeah, we had a few years where we were both floating around in Rotterdam as very, very young architects, just trying to figure out what we're going to do. I guess you figured that out. So Winy Maas founded the studio in 1993 together with his two partners, Jacob van Rijk and Nathalie de Vries. He has received many international acclaims for his broad range of urban planning and architectural projects. Of course, many typologies and scales. I still personally love the pig high-rise, which is not written down here, but it was a good one. And many also like buildings that were between exhibition and building form that were really testing feasibility of what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, what is occupiable by humans and non-humans. And you know, that was very early because now we are very used to talking about the occupants by humans, non-humans. But when MVRDV was experimenting with that was a very unusual discourse at that point. Their projects are often self-generated, innovative, experimental, and theoretical. Winy originally earned his degree in landscape architecture from Boskoop and went to get on his degree in architecture and urban planning from Delft University of Technology. This well-rounded background in the field of architecture and landscape made him the leader of MVRDV's interdisciplinary team since the establishment in 1993. Today, the studio has numerous ongoing projects all over the world. Driven by this dedication to green, user-defined, sustainable cities and spaces, Maas leadership drives many of the Office Award-winning projects, among which the Rotterdam Market Hall, which is absolutely gorgeous if you haven't seen it, 2014, Crystal Houses, 2016, the Tanjin Binhai Library, 17, Valley, 2022, and the first publicly accessible art depot in the world, which is the Boijmans van Beuningen, which is a huge mirrored donut. Okay, I'm going to call that. Let me not get there. Big round shape, and it is very cute to see that in Holland because you have to understand the Dutch like everything mediocre. Not mediocre. It's a middle-class society, so they like things to be understandable and kind of normal, as they say, or they have a saying, normal is crazy enough, which I never undescribed. So I think you broke those boundaries pretty sturdily with your office there. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's the inside is a super surprise after seeing the outside. The roof is phenomenal, and really interesting is also the way they invited artists to do the interior. They have these glass vitrines hanging down. I mean, you just have to go see it. It's really, really beautiful. So the collaborations with artists I thought was super productive and absolutely beautiful. Maas' broad portfolio also includes several master plans, including a vision for the future of Greater Paris, the left bank in Bordeaux, and the waterfront of Oslo. He supervised the World Horticultural Exhibit in the Floriade in 2022 and Eindhoven City Centre from 2017 to 2022. He challenges colleagues, clients, as well as students and collaborators at the TU Delft's the Y Factory, the Y as in W-H-Y, why not? An internationally engaged think tank that he established in 2008 to challenge the boundaries and establish standards to produce solutions that reimagine how we live, work, and play. Aside from his dedicated leadership role at MVRDV and professorship at TU Delft, he also teaches at several other places, is widely published, actively engaged in the advancement of the design of the profession, and sits on numerous juries and boards, including the special quality boards of Rotterdam, Eindhoven, and Barcelona. That must have been really fun. The Barcelona one. That is. The other ones, I don't know. In 2015, Maas was appointed as the Order of the Dutch Lion, to the Order of the Dutch Lion by the Dutch government, and the depot of the Boijmans van Beuningen was the winner of ARC 21 Awards, hosted by the Dutch architecture magazine, The Architect. It also won Public Building of the Year in 2021 in the architecture Internet kind of awards. It's a Dutch word, sorry, I'm translating. And just this year, their Atelier Gardens in Berlin won the Arc Daily Building of the Year for interior architecture and the MIPIM Award for Best Urban Regeneration Project. Tonight, Winy will present his lecture, The Future City, What's Next, given the global climate crisis and the specific role of architects in the construction of infrastructures that shape society. The discipline of architecture must tackle and consider current social challenges in a variety of ways. The call for sustainability has never been louder. When we talk about the cities of the future, we often think of them as sustainable and smart, but according to Winy Maas, they're much more than that. I will leave you with this quote. I advocate for a denser, greener, more attractive and livable city with an approach to design that centers around user-defined, innovative and sustainable ideas for the built environment, regardless of typology or scale. With that, I welcome Winy. So great to have you, Winy.
Thank you, Winke. And just a detail, I met you before that because I was looking for money for a sponsorship for an installation in Delft, a giant steel structure that we designed to as a backdrop for the yearly conference. And you were working for Luminance, for a lighting company, and but you sponsored us, so that this was very important to have at that moment people like you on that place. But then it was in your interior time, and then you took off from the interior into the globe. So that to say that just some expectations management. This is I normally students like to speak for 1.5 hours, and sponsors like that I speak only for 50 minutes. So that is I will be in between 1 hour and 10 minutes. I will speed up to that's a bit un-American, I know, but that's like how it is, and to deal with each other. What I will do, I will talk about the future city, which I hope that somehow we can dream about and to make it also in our lifetime, and that's what we have to face. Just some remarks. What was before? Just when I entered today's in Philly again, I had to think about Penn Tower actually to look at it, and it is funny because it was an attempt, say, on this district on Walnut Street, just next to the Walnut Street Theater, with this perspective in mind. You look at, you have towers, you have historical elements, and I'm not sure if I like the tower there on the left. So we thought, well, yeah, what is now Penn, and where am I going to? An English Quaker, blah blah blah, etc. I spoke with Fritz about it earlier, what that could be, and we were asked to make this. This is how you like towers in your country and in your city as such. And to put that in, say, why do you rent us? I asked the client, Mrs. Sweeney, how he can be direct in its way and to deal with it. So the team is partly here, and then if you are in a historical district, how do you blend that? So we thought that we can use William Penn, to make the tower a bit better in that way, and to create somehow in the shadow of his existence, burned in, I could say, into the tower, like a waterfall of gardens that make you dream that he would have been here. You can see that in the floor plans. You recognize the floor plans; they're all the same here. So that is that due to that you can that Penn makes this kind of element in abstract, of course, because if you do it literal, then you're blamed that you can never enter the country anymore. But because of nationalistic syndromes. But in the case that you abstract from that, I think you would have done it. It was too expensive. This is interesting. It was far too expensive, and it ended my career in Philadelphia on early days. So what we did then, because this is the text, the lecture is called "What's Next," and then I take you to the poorest place in Europe, which is called Tirana. Tirana, you don't know, it's Albania. It has a very specific element. It is hopes to come into the European Union. At a certain moment, Again, I made a mistake, but then in London I said UK out, Albania in. That became a kind of quote in The Guardian lately that architects can have sometimes influence. But this is built, this is a picture of 2 days ago, where it is, say, in the poorest country you could do it. In this case, the map of Albania, every house is one village in whole Albania that pops out, looks in the direction of Skanderbeg Square, which is the hero of Albania. It's a very communist. It's a weird communist country. I mean, once they danced with Russia, then they danced with China, and in the end they danced with themselves before they went into chaos. But it's like, and now it's there. So, dear clients of Philly, please come to Albania, have a celebration soon. So what's next? This is the title of and about this future city, to imagine steps. I think we live short, and so we have to speed up somehow in many things, and we have to think in steps, because every building cannot do everything. It can only do pieces. You have 8% of margins, basically, in your projects to dedicate to something which is outside of the norm or outside of the brief to do that, and that's exactly the point to do that. I would call today like this road that I would like to share with you as a road to maybe to how to paint then a future, or say in utopia. I call it biotopia, and I start to give all the ingredients that could lead to that. So this is the content. What I would like to do is simply 9 chapters, and I bring to you in a kind of easy steps. Chapter 1, Introduction. So just some words on MVRDV. Here you see what Winka was referring to with our team, how we have some offices on more places, and recently Vanessa is here. Also, we start in New York to have a better presence, and some journalists of the New York Times said you should live here this afternoon to do that. Because I'm happy that I could establish the Y Factory, because it's in Delft. I could build it myself. We can talk with people. I think that's one of the roles of the public institutions. There are 2 of them for me. One of them that you can talk to the outside world, how the world should be, and comment on it, criticize it, and radically. I mean, because we need that in all the levels to get things further. And secondly, I think you can dream. You can do some things which you can not do in your practices, where you have to actually, the only existence of being in a university is that I go beyond that in order to make things again possible. So how to do that in this case? Like there's a small unit, only master's education, no bachelor's, that dreams about the future city. We do it by making the model city, say 1 million people, how do they live normally together, how much cubic meter do they need in everything, and you turn one parameter differently, say if we want to fly, and that we did that with Grace Law in Michigan at a certain moment, then this whole composition blends up. So that, and if you change all other parameters, if it wants to be green, it changes for sure. If you want to have more oxygen, and that parameterization, because you have also here at the school a lot of discussion about parameterization, is about knowledge basically, and that makes it clear. And you have also a model somehow to mix that together. Second thing is the viewer. We visualize that in more places. The Hong Kong fantasies play a role still in the Hong Kong Shenzhen cluster at this very moment. I will be there next week again to bring the BUDW a little bit one step hopefully further. We need to continue strongly with that in order to overcome certain kind of political transformations. And currently, I think one thing which I'm not going to show is that, say, the European agency for the rebuilding of Ukraine needs to be established in Kiev, but will probably end for the coming years in Prague. And there only with professors you can do that a little bit to model that agency, like in the Marshall Plan, somehow to avoid corruption and to create equality instead of hierarchy is what is going to be there. That's also done with a Y factory partly in it, in that viewer section. And last but not least, I think if parameterization or digitization is important, and I know that Winka is like a lover of that, so there is a kind of that needs indeed what we call the controller, a device, a machinery, so that you can add on things, the knowledge that you do. Because every student, you do a specific piece, you do a specific piece. You cannot do everything. If you can say hack Google Maps in order to know how green our cities is, that's already, you can do it in 6 weeks. That's fine, but I have to add it into this controller to make it more operative. That's what we try to do. So that leads to a series of mini booklets. You can see it as totally as a novel that describes, say, this cloud that we call the future city of interrelative and parameterized exercises. I will illustrate that. So what is next? I made a book in 2004, which looked like this, which was about KM3, about cubicness, so about capacities of our planet. So I was thinking, what can we do next? What's next after this book? And to see it then as an evolutionary aspect, evolutionary city, to describe that, and then no excursions on capacities, but on time will come up, and I have to change the 3 into a 4. Is basically the concept of that book that comes soon on the market. How to be evolutionary, how to think evolutionary, how to position yourselves with all the relativeness that we have in such a way that you're proud on what you do, but also that it gives a meaning of the future, is what I try to describe. What's next is not original. It was original in this magazine. When he died, then this was the cover. Wow, that's cool if you're dead, and then immediately you make this cover. I will dedicate for sure this to him in that way. But of course, it was also the same moment that Sapiens appeared, that everybody has been reading. Now it's already old-fashioned somehow, funnily, because we went so quickly beyond that, because of this insane amount of books that have been made by him. But there are still some quotes as to refer on this kind of step, because if that was a good thinker, and he partly is, and we have Bruno Latour afterwards, and we have others, then in a way, he describes if history has direction. And I think that's what we have to hook upon, because it's like maybe our only way of describing what architecture could do in that way. And yes, he analyzed that through the past and made, let's say, a lot of argumentation about the directionality of it. And yes, we try to do. If we think about climate crisis, we talk to each other and then give it direction and give it meaning. If we talk about the economical crisis, it has the opposite, because then you spiral down by talking about it immediately into a kind of economical crisis. But that's what it is that could learn from that. So let me go further. So what to do then? And acting is an important action, or literally by doing it. There are quite some urgencies, and I'm not going into it because you know a lot. Huh? We consume too much, we are too many, and we are unequal, are some of the groupings that we could make. And if you do that in a kind of Siam-like way, there's about food, there's about water, then these are, just by analyzing tendencies, the thing that we have to work upon. Yes, it's climate, but it's also the social the discrepancy between North and South. Still, it's also, say, all the elements that we need to deal on the biodiversity. So there is, you can describe that, and these are some of the work of the students, that how that is happening up till now, and what do we do behind it in these processes. And also, if you make the maps of it, it starts to look like that over the planet. So this monitoring is like fascinating. So here are some models of what is happening in terms of shrinking of growing. I'm not going into the detail on that, but there is behind it is say this model, if it works in that case, which it doesn't. Give me a second. No, I'm too quick. So that
manipulated by global scenario. If we could see this data,
it's a bit slow. So this is more or less what we managed to do at the moment to master a little bit that kind of developments. That means a little bit of globes like that is presented here in our studio, with dreams to have, like in Davos, this kind of momentums with each other. So this was of a couple of years ago when these two characters were still in or on, and that how this meeting was happening at that moment afterwards, which I was very happy about. So what is next? In that way, from this kind of observation that we all share, we discuss, we are not through, we have a lot of scientists that work on it, we need them, and COVID has proven that science makes more sense. That leads to an agenda. The inevitability of an agenda is something that we share. If you ask a mayor of a town and you ask him, don't you want to be responsible? He says, no, of course I want to be responsible. And open? Of course I'm open. And curiosity? Yeah, even curiosity. Not in every town, but that is what could be. And if you go on with green or energy, water, biodiversity, there's no one against it almost. And there is actually a huge list that comes with that observation of the planet, where you can see that adaptability, it will be good to have that, because then you can continue in that, or that you want to be a little bit different also at town to compete in your specialism with other towns. These are things that come across. And then, of course, the last question I always ask to the mayor or to a prime minister, and then can it also, don't you want to be lovely? Or beauty, is that to be considered, or exciting, or excitement? Here you see already discussions coming in, and exactly we have to test that and to turn it into something which is ultimately wonderful. And that is my shopping list of the agenda that I could imagine. So what's next then, if we have that? I just pick some words on that list, on that shopping list. So first, again, Grand Paris, it's an older project, but it's happening as we speak, and because it's about, what is it, 13 million people, and we made at that moment, this was my gift at that moment to Sarkozy, very prosaic, the city calculator that somehow helps him and later the next, say, presidency to think about it. So finally, these are simply graphs, but they help you to say something on what you are making. I mean, I saw models that look like the ultimate chaos in the planet here on the top of your, so it's interesting with the Y factor behind it. I'm curious about it. Here, one explanation. So you think that Paris has a good public system of transport, which is true. It's far better than Amtrak, but it's like but compared to Hong Kong, compared to Amsterdam or Singapore, it's not that good on the level. And if you think also to cars, you think that Germany is only car driving, but it's or Los Angeles, but it's like actually Grand Paris is quite substantial. So we could continue by these comparisons, and we do it at the moment with many places, to understand a little bit like a score. How good are you is a question that also I have to ask myself in a book that I'm making. And that sets, if I compare the scores with others, then you have an agenda. You can say, some things I have to pull a little bit. And if you programize, how much do I have to pull in order to be, say, ecological, biological, or this is a quantification, how in 10 years Greater Paris should change or add or differentiate program. You can calculate it in cubic meters, not in square meters, because the forest is 30 meter high. So you need to, how much you need. And this is, say, my Independence Day cube of Greater Paris. And if I distribute it in the sequence of projects, that they all contribute to it. If I say that Paris has there's no ground anymore, no public soil, except for the public schools. If you use the public schools then to turn it into a tower, then you can do something into it. And you can repair the schools. But that's a holy issue, of course, to discuss that kind of thing. So you see that happening. So there are a couple of things happening since then. So what we call the solar park is to cover all the roofs with solar panels, even in Haussmann, is currently a law that is done, and that is, you see the products coming up. I need to change the panels. I know, because UNESCO didn't like them. So that is done now with this filter that also some of you have been working upon. If we want to keep the water longer in Europe, I think it's a substantial project. You've read the newspapers, how dry Germany is at the moment, or how dry Bordeaux is, and how the Alps have not enough snow, then this is a project to keep the Seine longer. That means basically that we have to flood the edges around it, and that turns into something. This discussion, which I'm building at the moment in Bordeaux and other places, is like insane, because every owner in France, and they can be strong, as you can see in the protest demonstrations this week, that they hate water under their soil, for the Dutch it's okay, you can guarantee that technically, you can access it, rats, yes, fine, biodiversity, and there's an insurance system that deals with it. To change the MAF, the national security system, into accepting this is what took me already 10 years to get that done, and now to get it built in certain kind of places, as you can see in this kind of, say, slides. Wait a moment, this is... So, another thing that is also under process, so 10 years ago, to look at it, there is funnily, all the French love that the nicest thing, I think, of Europe, and we were talking about it this afternoon. If I take a train from New York to Miami, it takes me 26 hours for this, like 800,000 kilometers. I thought, wow, that's like 4 hours normally. So there's something to do. Honestly, if we can convince this government or the governments or your tax system a little bit, I know, I see faces here that already don't start on this, but it's like, in France, the trains end on the Gare du Nord, Gare de l'Est, and then you have to take an hour and a half to get your other train. So the project to connect them is, beyond the elitism that everything ends in Paris, is now happening with, say, this is the situation, how they end. This is the main tunnel, how it's with two sides between the north and the south to develop it. It means basically that the central station will be under the Place de la République, of course. This was so why did they forget that? So, but it took 10 years. I'm fair enough. So this is the Place de la République, just renovated. This is what it will be. So it will be basically like a Rem tried to do it in Lille, but this can be much more interesting because it's much deeper. Trains have to go to -80 under the city to make this crossing possible. And at the same moment, it helps to transform the Gare du Nord and the Gare de l'Est into this, simply into a neighborhood. I can keep a little bit of the tracks. How long have we not discussed here in your inhabitable garage, just around the corner, to make your railway system a little bit more efficient in Amtrak? I could not talk with Amtrak. They were like, no, we keep everything what we have, and that's it. And while it could be much more efficient to do that, and that is somehow which I like about this project. This one is also very beautiful. Coming up, the tower of the piano is just built. Basically, is to transform, to create an extra ring line. There are 2 ring lines under construction of, and that would transform this boulevard périphérique. Some of you have done it. It's like the national disaster of France to go through it and to transform it basically an extra plateau and to make a kind of dike that's as a park with the new tram line and the towers that surround it. So this gives a way of translating these urgencies into action on an urban level. I mean, you seem to be famous to integrate urban planning, landscape, and architecture. Some say that landscape architecture deserves more students here in order to make it more equal. So we have to try to, when you're away for a year, maybe we can do a kind of plaidoyer to use that, abuse that year to advocate this radical combination of these groups. I think it would be super because it doesn't exist. Many universities, even at Wageningen, is not completely doing that, to do that. So that is what the Paris example shows. I will not go into the others. We don't have enough time today to show Grand Bordeaux, Grand Lyon, Grand. Everyone calls himself these days Grand in France to give attention to that. If we would do that concept also for the US, it would be actually not bad. Grand Philadelphia, j'imagine. Bon, donc let's continue. It is also about mixing. Are you against mixing? Political discussion. And you can see how in many places, because of gentrification, a certain kind of ghettoism is coming. And certain, I will not say that it's everywhere. Sorry, but it's like it is in places like Marseille. It's kind of a disaster at the moment of this distinguished direction. I'll give you one small research that students did in a factory on combination of individuality and density. So here an example of mainland China, how these kind of models are still under production, also post-COVID, and then you see young people looking at it and don't know to choose between type A, type B, type C. There is nothing to choose from except for square meters, is what it is. They look, I mean, of course, your real estate managers have the same behavior. It's or situation or square meters, and for the rest, they don't care. Architecture doesn't count almost in money of your situation, while at the same moment, you see diversity coming up. So we tried for a while in Hong Kong, Taipei, and in Shenzhen to give a kind of program. This is in 2009, or to start with choosing then and then montage them on top of each other. This is kind of and then leading to this kind of situations that we would make a vertical village of different houses, everything different, and then this is the neighbor, how to make that contrast. But the in-between could be fascinating. And I know Herzog & de Meuron made something for Vitra, but that was less content and more shape than less urbanism and more architecture. So that's how to deal with that to get this done. So it's nice to show a couple of things. In a way, the New York building is a little bit about that. I know this is budgets for $200 per square foot, so it's almost nothing for a New York market to get that done and to get stones from Europe that keep their color in that way. But still, I'm super happy in 181st Street to somehow make something that reflects the scale and reflects and is also collaborated with the Dominican community that surrounds it. And you can transform this typology of the upper side of Haarlem into something like a vertical version that can be visible. And yes, you have two types of, say, hotels. One is 2 stars, the other 3 stars. You have different types of housing and affordable housing in 2 types of working. And you have a great wedding chapel in the core. And then in between, you can go in, can walk up, you can go to this kind of terraces. I mean, this is a tearjerker. If you are having marriage here and you reap replace the movies with this green law and this perspective with some of the trees, and then but you have this is much more. Then I would say yes. No, and that is and I love the courtyard. Please go during the parties in the coming time to try to communicate and to build up something. And I still remember the choice of the Dominican. I had to learn Spanish. The Spanish, the Dominican radio station who is situated in this building is lovely, because if you're part of a Spanish-speaking Dominican radio station, you have to talk, but in the same moment, 20 other people are talking. So you have to survive in it. It's a good exercise of how to survive in that way. This is but what I reflect in a way, and how it comes alive in that way. It's a little thing to help, and it's up. They didn't want to have a white building. That was very clear. No glass, and please not steel or not like Midtown or downtown is what they were like saying. It's fine if we can make a kind of uptown, northtown, which is completely colorful. I'm on. And I hope that we can all do that together, so that when you come from LaGuardia and you see something, that's New York. Because I do think that Manhattan is a bit boring. So how to do it further? These are this is under construction at this very moment in Shenzhen as again a test to make this kind of combination makeable. So it takes sometimes a little bit of time, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, you think that you can do it in 2 years, even in mainland China. It's not true. Sometimes the planning bureau took a while. Feng Shui, how Feng Shui is, that's with the points. So it took some moments to talk about that and to get it now done. But I'm happy that you do. Just continue. Don't stop by trying to make things doable. So what's next? I think in Rotterdam, some examples of the last year during COVID, where we tried to make this kind of villagism or the vertical village here by prefab and action in one street that you make it. Yeah, it's an advertisement, I know, UNESCO area. So you yell out so that you have this this continuation, and how that could look to more than a Photoshop. This is a reality, and how it from every tower you can see it at the moment in my little town. We started to work on a stair. Yeah, stairs. Yeah, there was a whole biennale once by Rem on this kind of elements. So let me enlarge that, because that's what my role is seemingly in life. And it's like to add one here on the most terrorist-driven area, the stations in Europe. How to do that? Half of the money goes to security, to be honest. But then it was a free enterprise to go up, queuing up to do that. And somehow people loved it. So it is so simple. Can we do that in that way? And then to add that to do it, it costs less than €500,000, and you can have then you continue. This was last summer, to make more programs on top and to have this kind of situation. So. Like your drawings of Le Corbusier here in your office, that this is finally maybe a cuter color. So I would like maybe another screen sprint, again to advocate what we call the second layer of a city, and in a human way, so that you start to use old buildings, but also make prepared for something more than only a skyscraper, but for a density that could do there. And it still was a very nice moment. I loved also this one, because we do it every time, so that you have what we call the rooftop days, and for a month. And here, my first bridge in Rotterdam, Metropolis is cute, you can see, but this is my mini Metropolis film that I could make now in Rotterdam, to have that for like 6 weeks, and how people could go and walk and then see over the bridge, meet each other over there, and have your experience, and then go down again and test then the potential of the roofs in all its ways, is what it shows as an advertisement of what it can be. So action painting is part of your job in the future. You can wait for 10 years for a museum is done, but what do you do in the meantime? So I think we have to try to do that in many places that architecture can help. This leads to a new zoning plan. At the moment, this is the zoning plan that we are making for the roof of Rotterdam. Percentage-wise, it's a calculator. So there are more cities now taking that over. Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, for instance, are going to use it. To give an example on where do you distribute water, where do you distribute the soil, where do you distribute green, where do you put houses, how high can it be, where do you consider payoff of connections and lifts that bring you up or stairs that bring you up, and that with a catalog that is made, that is what new Rotterdam could be. And say the tweede opbouw, the second build-up after the war, could be imagined to do that. We have to change Dutch law, but I already explained in France you do that also. You have 10 years. A law you does it more or less like 3 years to get it through the Senate. In any place. I would advise that also the AIA should work a little bit stronger on this. I must say that I find it not that active. I expected much more action. But it's, so the law in this case is like that every roof in the Netherlands from now on has to have another weight. So, which is fundamental, just small line, instead of, what is it, 500 newtons per square meter, or what is, now it turns into 3 times as much, so that it can contain water, that it can keep the water, that it can be green, but we have soil, and yes, you can build 3 layers of housing on top of it. Now, so simple is it. It's only one line in it takes some talking and some lawyers to get it done, but that is architecture. Ultimately, it is these kind of things. Don't be against it. I mean, we train our architects too much to behave like star architects, or like a vague sketch and all, famous. But actually, this is more substantial somehow to do that. I have never seen a Frank Gehry building that wants to do a change of an urban law. That is what I miss in his career up till now. But he can also change. Let's see. So what's next? 6th chapter, openness. I think that is generally an activity that we have to play to deal with. Our buildings are enclosed monsters, and people follow buildings, so they have the same aspect, one could say. So in the porosity research, that book that you might have seen, it analyzes basically the recent architecture of towers. And towers, what can you do as an architect? I talked already about the Penn Tower. I tried to do something and poof, it becomes simply straightforward and should be. Austerity is kind of on the horizon of it, with good parts sometimes, but I'm not sure if this is the good collection. So I still remember the moment that with Lego that students start to play step by step by step, like you can see it here, and then the reverse, this tower becomes more open, almost pregnant, and makes a beautiful corrective space. Or if you slice it, the watch can hang in between the towers, as you would say in Barcelona or in Hong Kong. Or you twist them, and then you get a wonderful Frank Lloyd Wright like building to do it. Or you make villages out of this. So how much can I do? And what does it give? How much does it cost? How many extra steel do I need to do that? And what does it then give? At what step do I have to stop? So the calculations in the book show, yes, some things are more costly. On the other hand, they create cooling, they create more storage for water, they create more storage for greenery, and they can make something beautiful out of it. This was all this test of the students from one, say, aspect that you think, because every student has like an intuition, of course. I love balconies. Okay, you go to balconies. I want to have stairs, and that's what it can do. And then you get this. This is a kind of scientific Manhattan, I would say. That's, if Manhattan would look like that, with different streets and avenues, then you would have, I think, a beautiful combination of, like, say, 6th Avenue that gradually would become more pregnant, as you can see in the middle row, or that gradually, this avenue would turn into more balconized. I mean, then Leonard Street would be that could be much better, to be honest, to deal with that. And so I love this one still. This is why the tower just stairs. I walk up from one to the other. Oh yeah, I have to go back because of gravity in that way. And you make the most polite tower ever made. I would love to put this next to some of the skyscrapers to admire at that moment my ancestors to see that. So what's next? I think Mirador in Spain at that moment was part of that, to investigate the social housing and to create this kind of soccer field higher up, cooling the environment due to the wind. In Spain, quite an issue. Or in Seleucia, a closed door where basically we make use 4 houses, we pull them apart, and then you get this patios where you can meet or where air filters in. And yes, it reminds me again of Le Corbusier. You're correct, Winka. But it's like that is, but finally built because he didn't do it. So, and somehow even the buildings, all the unité d'habitation, they were so much unité and less about this kind of potential that he also developed. So finally, I thought, let me do it for him. So the market hall could be also seen in that point. You make 2 slabs of housing, you bend them a little bit, and they kiss each other, and you have a public space that is like there. And yes, you work with an artist always, in this case, to make the new, say, ceiling, the new endlessness that is, you can see maybe in Rome in certain places, but then finally also in Rotterdam could have that. And yeah, who doesn't want to sleep next to such a painting is what it could be. It becomes an address for the real estate and for the people that live in it. Please look at their website to see how they think about it. That's what I would say. What's next? I think this is a chapter, it just shows Piramida is coming up, is again Albania, because I showed it, and you go there soon. This was the building by Hoxha. Hoxha was a criminal, the dictator that turned Tirana and Albania into poverty, and that discriminated women so much that he stayed there. This is what his place, very how it was. So I only can find images through LME stock, but it's at the moment that he died, admittedly, this sculpture was captivated. Youth took over. This is, I'm talking about 97, when that would happen, in the chaos of that moment. And they used it basically as sliders to go down. How many people have been hurt? Is enormous. Broken. There was no hospital. They had to go all to Thessaloniki, which is like 400 kilometers away from it, to be repaired. So what to do now? And here comes a very delicate discussion. You can read it in The Guardian about it. Don't worry. I just try to give an answer. What can an architect do? How should he or she reply on that? So this is the existing situation. So how it was. And what we first do, we open it up. Get rid of this, turn it into a public space, endlessly. We could have decided we burn it down. You can. No. You actually, the fact that you overcame this dictator should be also visible. You could have said we repair it very in the glory of that past and turned it into a museum. So in between are some opinions. You will see it everywhere in this kind of discussion. So this is an exercise basically on this. So we decided after talking with many people, okay, we keep it, but we clean it up. We make it safe to go on top of so that also you can go up, or your grandfather can go up with you to the top, and you get this kind of exalteric moment of stairs. We squat the building, so we add program, but who is going to pay for this, especially in a country that has no money? So we found Tumo, a school, one beautiful initiative that somehow I think they're not yet in the US, but that is that makes schooling after school, because you cannot change primary schools. So if you want to learn a computer, you can do it in that case. Or if you want to learn about ecology, you can do it because the public schools cannot afford for that. You inhabit it, but you connect it with the landscape, you open it completely, and you control the microclimate by just keep it open. But there's rain, of course. There's how to deal with that park in that way, and then you have a public pyramid is what is there. So this is the overview, restoring the park, and make a new forest in it, so that, and this is how it could look like. So access all over the place, connective bridges, programs that settle around, that stack together, and now is going to be into this rainbow of colors by an artist that we work with to have that possible. So this is a situation of a couple of weeks ago, how it's now getting there. and how there's the collection of colors, how the stairs are coming up. I'll take you up for a minute. I'll take you over the bridges. We climb here into this insane moment. This will be the new parliament area, so we make benches so that the whole parliament could sit there and discuss on this roof. And in the center, the star becomes a transparent star, so to walk on top of it, and then you can walk back again here with the mayor, and then have this view over the area with the boxes that squatters over there. And here about this, the discussion about unwilding is an important issue of this opening act to make you view a thing. What's next? We can open up in another way. In the book Luxury of the North, we explored the beauty of the northern part of Canada and other places where you have infinity as an important tool to experience. Can we do that also in density? So here, students made one, say they try to test, this is a piece of Vancouver, to say how would it look like if everything is glass. Towers, behind it. So it's a small exercise. Took millions of gigabytes to do it, but it was and then of course the intimate parts we do it in mirrors, a bit like this show now in Brooklyn Museum, to compensate that. Also, of course, you have the stairs, you have the cars, the trams that could be in it. This could be maybe a dream or a nightmare that we can explore, but maximization can help. So what is next? I think our Schijndel enterprise in Amsterdam is about that. So because protected, some of you might know it if have been there, but an exercise to transform all the stones into glass and all the emulsions into glass. How to make that, to glue that together? We need 20 times the stones again and then put them in. How to repair such a stone and to pull it out? I'm not going to say, because I'm not allowed to, how that technically is done. How to glue them? We need, dentists basically that normally do your teeth to get the same glue to work on it. And then you can see something, how even UNESCO can be updated or can be combined into the most expensive detail, how to transform from glass into bricks, part of it, and that is what how it could look like, from solid to transparency, and how you want to touch the building. I think that is. I never want to touch these buildings here in Philly. They're cold steel, and they don't have that feeling that you want to do something with it. And if you go inside, I know for sure that the articles of Chanel became more expensive, not because of the price, but also because of the beauty that it would be in it. The owner is very happy at the moment, so because it was not Chanel that owned it. Now Hermes took over. Because they saw it and they thought, okay, I can earn money here. And so that's also, you have to check out when it makes sense. People want to spend money. There's a willingness to do it at a certain moment to see that happening. So that's about transparency and opening act. I go to my second part. I still have half an hour for this. I think the introductions were too long. That's to take you one moment. Always, yeah, there it is. So what is next is liberty. Honestly, I think who is against liberty? There are people that we know, but so I started a while ago with free migration world, just as an example to balance between XS and XL. So, and here, just to understand, I'm very naive, I know, and I'm here in the core of the academic world, so how to defend that? US produces this, has so many inhabitants, that's the GDP per capita, 36,000. China, similar, about 10%. Sierra Leone, almost like 1% is what it doing. Normally, if you do it's a very simple algorithm, just before you build up resistance, and you open all the borders, people search a little bit where they can get money. Say that we share it a little bit. So and that would mean that the US would be bigger than India in the future. It would solve a lot if you would do it. So that, but I'm not a politician. So China would be more or less the same, to be honest, and Sierra Leone would be quite empty. So that would transform the densities on our planet immediately. And also the Netherlands gets like about 80 million people in this case, which finally beats Germany. So it could be kind of maybe a nice exercise to do. Having said that, what is happening at the moment, that because you say this is stupid and silly, yeah? Because you're not allowed, I know, you have to be serious, academic, trained, and the sources are here, no worry. So, but what is then, let me look to what happens recently in Europe. Because of opening of the borders, Sweden had 50% more people, Denmark 21%, Cyprus, France grows, Netherlands 16% extra, Germany shrinks, Italy shrinks a lot. Estonia goes down. Romania will not exist in the future. Lithuania and Bulgaria, this is in 5 years' time what happened when opening the borders. I'm actually quite fine with it. You can, what to do with it, but I mean, okay, I have to do a little bit more in the Netherlands to take this on my shoulders. But we have brilliant, beautiful new forests in Bulgaria in this nearby future. There are more aspects. I know, but just to help a little bit, that's this, what's next, basically after the diagram came up. This is about, so, but what, now I try to show, how can we apply that in urbanism, liberty, freedom. This is Oosterwold, this is Amsterdam on the left, on the right, a new city. You see that new city, it's a garden city called Almere. It looks like this, it's very ugly, huh? So, and it's only for poor people. So if you have a salary below a certain moment, you can go there. So for Amsterdam, the elitists, of course, they behave like Paris. They put out in their social awareness this to this surrounding in the beginning. So what we do at the moment, we work on a plan, and that is the coming 5 years even more, to have a new metro line, to have an injection of more garden cities. We declared it as a UNESCO protection area. You will see a brown sign on the highways in the nearby streets. Almere, UNESCO protected. I'm really top with that, because we have to defend that structure, because it's a garden-esque city. And here you see the plan. So in between, we make 4 new garden cities. And every garden city wants to beat the garden city before. It wants to do something. I'm not going to explain them all. I mean, the one on the lower part is that cleans that lake. That lake is brown. It looks like coffee, and it's not so pristine because of it. We did a mistake in our hydrological composition. So that one is cleaning that part. So everyone takes a piece. This is the last one on the complete other end. This is, it looks a bit like Russia, that polder, and it's like what to do there. So we make a plan where housing, about say 50,000 units in the end, will be combined with agriculture. And everybody can make something, but he has to make this combination, he or she, in that way. And the monitor will be done by this computer, and you have to design this. You can do it with more people, no problem. To do that, you can do it in more scales, also no problem. And what happens then, that you always live with agriculture in some pieces. And every piece has to make also its roads, you do it yourself. This is the only part in the Netherlands where you have to do it yourself. So you have to reserve for your neighbor. The neighbor can pass by. So here you can do what you want, but you cannot harm your neighbor or the future of the neighbor in that way. Also for the water system, you have to do it, and you have to do the cleaning. So the issue about responsibility is a big thing at the moment in urbanism. Who takes responsibility? I know you think maybe, oh no, we are so happy that we finally make all the sewage systems everywhere and that way. So I don't criticize that. The back part is it that people take everything for granted. And that is, and that sometimes I must say that the cleaning system of the water is not that good in many places, or if we are too late. So here people do it themselves. They do it with energy also. Then they can make what they want. So you start with this. This guy makes that. That girl makes that. One barba there. And you have to. There's no grid. It's the opposite of the grid. The grid is the smallest detail. You go around in that. So here, how it starts, there's a website that you can check. People start to talk how to work on it. There is a group that does this with the agriculture around it and with its prefab elements. Others work with that. Here is the cleaning of the water systems that they do on the site. This is the lady that shows the continuity, how that is growing. I cannot predict, I don't talk about taste, but because you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. So it's all that. But to show some aspects. So if this is one person that started, then the next comes, oh, that guy wanted to have a bigger site. The road has to bend. Wow. actually quite okay, no? To have this in it. Better, nicer road. So that is happening. You can see it here. Or then not all are specialists. So you see people becoming specialists in this kind of development. Like pensionados that become then road specialists, they did this. There is no sanitation means halofite filters. They can be like this, they can be like this. So you see a repertoire of tests in that way. Heat pumps. This is the city of heat pumps, which are everywhere. On every situation you can find heat pumps. I'd never have made a city with heat pumps. There are new building techniques like this earthship technology. There are dachas by architects that do this kind of aesthetic. There is this guy who made with 20 people the longest, say, Mies van der Rohe in the Netherlands. There is this guy made his loft homes for almost no price in it. The farming here, one of the farmers who produces this, or this one who makes wine. Here the chicken farm. There's a market. There is a chef's table coming up, and there is a school also that comes into it. So this is what happens. So the Dutch middle class can still do nice things. That's what it only proves. I don't say it, don't take me wrong, that you should do it everywhere in that way. It's a test. So with this, what is about 10,000 hectares, we can now experiment with that, and you can see now how it's getting there. Yeah, it is somehow looks like a slum, but a slum of middle class in a way. But people are, insane houses are there, insane clusters to go around and to see what they have done in this mishmash of compositions and through it. For once in my life, I can make in the most, say, regulated country in the world, I can do something which is the opposite, is what it basically is, to have an idea. We did it in the students also to make it more practical, in density. You call it we go, from ego to we go, in a way. So what is the test? You see a studio, there are 17 architects in this studio, and they have to work with 17 characters. And so this is all done by programs and on the internet, and they find these characters. So here a man that loves a bowling alley and a bed. So here one that loves, say, openness or an acoustical space. So let's as a starting for dream houses. I mean, normally you do this in Almere Oosterwold, or you do it somewhere in a suburb here in your country to celebrate it. What becomes more interesting is when you do it in a city. So how can I make this slab somewhere in Philly, I hope, to make that doable? So you have to do a game, because how to negotiate between you two. So here you see how and we did different kind of sessions, different type of game design to test what it is. Here's a blind game. I come back to that. So this is what you see on the screen. You have no clue what the others are doing. So you have to protect your shape with that. And you have only half an hour, so how to do that. And yes, my grandma was also not so good in gaming, but we have to train each other a little bit. So here you see the X-ray of the actions, how it would be, and how it leads to a composition after, like, freeze at a certain moment when it's full. What is then the satisfaction factor? So there's a blind game, automated game, a trading game, a strategic game, different, say, software. And actually the blind game was quite good. And it leads to this kind of puzzle in the end. These houses, whoa, these are nice. These are different than the standard house here that I could take in, say, this tower that we were making here. And that leads to this kind of, say, the facade with this kind of house. I mean, if I'm in the purple house, I get intrigued. I negotiate it with a neighbor, but my neighbor is entering me. This corner, so you want to see that house also. So that's what it tries to do, to go there to see this puzzle. We tried to build it during the design show to test it on scale, how it would work. And we were like also now more programming that part. So here you see an example of what happens if we can transform that house on the site. Say you have an hotel. And in the evening you don't know yet how many people live in that hotel, and you make that hotel that is informed by you or by you during the day. So how much do I need in this case to cook? So this is just voxelizing what the demand is. So if you cook together, then you have this basically to do it. So if you then imagine this facade, this building, and you make it with kind of prefab units that you move around on a rail. I'll come back to that later. And this is during the time how it by the information that is sent by the clients that come for the later in the evening, how they move through it and start to organize it. The main test for this was that it's ready at 6 o'clock in the evening when most of the guests come, so that it would be doable. Oops. So how would it look like? Typical Friday afternoon. Drink. So you see the rail network on both sides. And you see the boxes. And that move to your position. So imagine that we are coming there. The cheesy music is by students. I don't need lifts. That's a nice part in this building. Firemen didn't know yet a little bit how to do with it. But you come, you go to your optimized position. Your chair comes down, your table, your kitchen is adapted. So this was a dream for the Dutch design show in Eindhoven last year. We didn't have enough financial support yet to do it, but to get basically that kind of composition in. So it means basically that here, these are tests, how that would move. Let's see, there's one of the boxes. What do you need then on the corner, and how to move it through. This was a nice studio. To have it done in 5-6 weeks to make that then possible. Lots of detailing, I can guarantee that to make that possible. So what's next? I bring you to another fantasy, and that's then what I call Barba Papa, or in a way, Barba Papa was a comic in France, which looked like that. So it was a figure that could transform in any shape that it wants. So it becomes from a piano, it could become into a Valentine figure, and it was like in my childhood, it was like. It was like it. So can we make it now? Finally, as architects, to do that. So then we start to make with the ETH and with the Delft. Like, how much space do I need? So see, I sleep here. I have a beautiful body. I need to wake up. I will push a little bit, like Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times. I walk. How much space do I need before? I look up. And of course, when you wake up, like Herzberger always said, I want to open up a window with my hands. Because that's the nicest feeling, to make it open. My son comes with his dog. This moment is an interesting one. Because if you imagine this as rubber, I have to program the rubber that it opens. Or I love this, the water that goes through it. That means that I can have water everywhere when I want. And yes, it collects quickly in that moment. And I think I love this section a lot, because then you swim, but who is moving in this? Is the house moving? Am I moving? In a shower, better than soup door ever could make, is like me to you. Imagine that also our clothes are like that this is the new Zara. I can clothe in everything. Or cooking. Fruit comes to you, it boils, the rubber is boiling at that moment and transforms into this. So every second of that day is made in that film by the students to show it. And yes, of course, this is the easy part, also to glow at that moment, the rubber. But it was taking, because you can say, this is impossible. But if you go to any medical faculty here now, and you want to have a new heart, this rubber is expensive. But if you give that a kind of direction, and then I think this interactive moment that we try to do in WeGo was also, you could maneuver it more quickly in this kind of... So do tests how to do information. Here you see how one touches it and how the material reacts by scripting how to do with that. Or here you talk with your wall and say, I have to react on that. So which is a beautiful scene, how to script this kind of reaction process between the one and the other is what this is wanting to say. Movement can help in the future to do that. Another test. So what's next? I'm finally there, but I missed one component. Barba Papa is very male still. Rubber is still a certain kind of material. But where is the organic version of it? Where is Barba Mama, I would say. So what we try to do now is to work on this greenification. I have 2 chapters in that. Let me start with cycles as a start. It's a word that we have to take into consideration a lot. And when you see the film of the BBC recently about Chernobyl, and then this is the new Chernobyl. So it's like a sight. I mean, some of you have watched it, and I think it's an exciting movie of on showing what it is with animals that are living in this position and they are taking over. So somehow, I mean, it takes a while for the pollution, but this is not a bad building in the end to think about that. Cycles are, of course, multifold. It's quite a complex system to describe it. It's about oxygen, it's about temperature, it's about water, it's about joules and watts, it's about CO2 that we somehow have to address. It's about nitrogen. There's quite a lot to work with that. So give you some examples. With the Green Dip book that comes out soon, we imagine that Hong Kong could look like this, just to test how much would give. So we examined all the plants and the sizes that it needs. And I know, when you want to have a good cherry tree, and I saw here, I think on Walnut Street, there's mini things that are dwarfed in this kind of compact boxes. You need quite a lot. So we do it at the moment to test the sizes of the box. And on one hand, how much do they give also in terms of oxygen and in terms of water management or cooling? So there are many products that are developed, and I imagine that the next IKEA will look like this, only about stuff that you would help. And then if you imagine certain spot to do it, you have the world, which is like a canvas. I showed that earlier. Take 1 square kilometer, because that's the way how you do. Let me take one piece of Manhattan for the moment. It's by coincidence to do that, and I put these products in it. I see how much it gives in terms of CO2 absorption. And so finally, I would say Manhattan gives something back to the world instead of consumption. And I mean, this is Fifth Avenue at the moment. It's not bad, I would say. It looks a bit like some of the movies that you have seen, but then in a positive or constructive manner, and where even our interiors could help on that kind of situation. If we would do that with all the flat roofs in the world, then this would be some of the data that would come out of it. So basically, I think the most important part is that there are 2 times a way of dealing with temperature, that the temperature would drop with 1 degree Celsius or Fahrenheit to think about that. So it would be so nice to say at a certain moment, architecture can help. Because at the moment, nobody says that or doesn't know how to show it. So if you can make a bigger message in the future, that would be lovely. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot, the animals in that way. These are also my clients. Big City was nice, and yes, last week's, it becomes now, I will show it in the book about how many real big cities are built in mainland China. Not that bad as people say here in the West. But let's go for biodiversity. Another one, how to live together. So here you see a series of clients, and they have a certain order because they eat each other. So one eats the other, and how much do they eat? If you script that and say, what's the best composition of it, then you start to know how many cubic meters you need. We have again same products that facilitate mice, rats, even mosquitoes. I come back to that because we have to deal with it. And you put it all over, and you see over those products, then the minute kind of toilets, new kind of stairs. You have an interesting facade you get, good roofs, good interiors that can help. And then, not a bad city. Lille, one of the ugliest places in France, becomes somehow nice at that moment. So what is next? I think the depot, I can talk a lot about it because it was in this area and it is built basically to lift the art and to out of the soil. So what we did basically is this is the storage space, make it round to make it thinner. It goes like it's a boat, actually, because there's only pooling cables to do it. Make a platform, can walk around, replace the plants. That's what I want to talk about. So we made this a reflection to look around, and then you get this as a result. So it's done. You can go there, but I want to talk only about this roof forest to make that. So these are the trees that we trained already for 4 years to make them. Here how they come. how the soil package is done, how the screen is part of the wind flow, how we make pockets in the building on top of it, and how in 1 year you have this. If you want it, you can do it. That's basically it. But you have to do other kind of pots to make that possible. So this was a kind of test to explore basically that. I think in the valley, another test. This is the Dutch CBD. It looks that is as ugly as other CBDs. So we were asked to make this, 3 towers and a plinth. Oh, it's everywhere the same. So we made a facade that is also mirroring the environment. So you love the neighbors, so you keep it what they have. And then we script this kind of elements, so bay windows in combination with pocket parks, pocket terraces that calm down the wind, and that leads to this kind of valley that is, and it carves out this whole volume. It's planted by Piet Oudolf, by the Zeta Highline landscape architect, and that becomes then an object that is then growing into this. Piet loves to make plants that are small, so that grow. You've seen that also in the Highline. So that's what we are now working on. You see it here on the construction, how their paths are public. You can go up, how you can see the new plantations, and there are ponds which are transparent, so that downstairs you can also follow that. And then everybody has a terrace. I mean, the good thing about this, I don't have vertigo in this tower, because I can stand out, I fall 1 story down. That's what it basically is. So somehow I'm not scared, and I appreciate this vertical. And of course, it's a combination between privacy and collectiveness. I can give the beer to my neighbor on Saturday afternoons. It's full of barbecues, so the whole building is in smoke. But it's like, that's what we wish, no? To do it. So what is next? So Lou, a road with this deck, with another decking, with pots that are trained and from the whole alphabet, explained on it, with program below, with lighting that helps, which extends and has also, say, allotment gardens around it, is planted and tested with a university in Seoul to test all these plants over this viaduct and how it's there at this moment. It grows at the moment. After 3 years, and you go back now, you can see, wow, the species that do it very well and the ones that not, and we still, so they become too big. Yes, we know that would happen. So we have to rearrange the pots, and is what this system is going through. There are bridges, because the value raised, just like the Highline. It's so simple, our economics. So there's how to do that, and you see one of the towers which uses the pots to do it vertical and to have this connection. So it transforms this into something like that that we are facing. And as we speak, the 3rd competition is happening for one of the towers, and I can show you the next time. So I go on with this green agenda. Here an example of what Manhattan could do. This is what Manhattanians eat. And when they're vegetarian, by the way. So that is this amount of stuff. It could be a cool tower, 37-kilometer high, so it would reach outer space at that moment. But if we distribute it on the rooftops, all the different species, then I get actually a fascinating Manhattan. And so autarctic Manhattan is doable if you wish to do it. I know you have space in Ohio, but this would be not bad to see how much simply the big city finally comes into Manhattan is what we try to do. In the Tainan market, which is like this, we try to test it now so that this roof is somehow leading to a sequence of paddies where plants are growing. It's not finished yet, but it starts to be makeable, and you just continue with your dream to echo the Taiwanese landscape. So what is next? I think here in Bordeaux is a southern France city. 3 blocks we are making in our own urban plan. You see the 3 blocks. And we said, let's make a bomb of green that cuts out, like Gordon Motta Clark enterprise, these houses, and then plant them with trees. And how that could, we also here test that operation. So here you see the current state, how it starts to become apparent, how they're watered, how it leads to beautiful spaces, and how you have this kind of Colosseum in the end in France of green. Water, just some remarks on that. This city in Tainan is quite ugly. It has no green at all. This was the Chinese department store that we have torn down, but we kept a lot, all the stuff, because it's in the sea, and if you get rid of the material, everything comes up. So you have to keep the weight. So this was precise, and then also the water helps in this case. Turn it in this kind of pool, the first public pool. We were not aware that it would work at that moment. A couple of people liked it. I mean, maybe some of you come from that area, but the Taiwanese culture was not like Denmark or like Sweden or like Basel, where you would jump in half naked into a pool. So here, first the kids came in, then say the parents came in, and finally the grandparents also are now into this pool. And so it's a combination of ruins and water. It is with the trees that grow and that keep the water. So we expect a temperature drop of 4 to 5 degrees in this bubble that we could do. So here, this is my dream for Rockefeller Center in the future, to make it in that way slightly better and prepare it for your hot summers. Yes, this is dengue proof, to give you immediately some of the critical faces that I see. So during dengue season, we lower the water so that they cannot grow there, which is about like 6 weeks to do that and monitor that. So we have to face that and to think about that. Please go there and have fun. Is what this kind of open environment. So what is next? Again, an example in Taiwan. Taipower, national company, we are making there on this edge, just before the Chinese mainland, their new say headquarter building is basically a mountain of solar panels. So you have somewhere on the Taiwanese coast, you get this. It has an overproduction. You have the whole soil is a battery, I know, with lava blocks that I heat up to as an exchanger. But this is then a way of dealing it. What it says basically is that it's a bit of overdone, you can say. But then you can have attention. Then it makes it more visible. But most of the sustainable architecture is horrendous. I have no clue. There's stuff below. It's wood and it's so, they all look the same. Any building that at the moment is done in that sense, it's understandable. But sometimes we have to exaggerate a little bit to make it more visible. And this 8% of the budget allows for that, is what it wants to say in this case. So here again, so we do that also for this Shanghai building, where we make more. I hate solar panels directly on the roof. If you lift them 4 meters, you keep the doubleness of the function. You can still grow plants, and you can have actually a better insulation level to do that. And this kind of spaces could be coming out of it. CO2, it's clear. Of course, we have to build in wood. It's too super complicated to get it done. Laws change in many countries per month. In order to, so we monitor for the European governments now, you see a little bit the difference between Germany and France. How much far can I make a lift in wood, yes or not? It's getting actually worse, to be honest, to get it done. Sydney Tower, I love that one, because this is low-rise, stacked up here, the vertical village helps to make fire rules so that these blocks can be made out of wood. In between, it's completely fireproof zones that can stabilize that tower. So what is next? I end with, of course, with the horticultural show. Almere on the right, Almere on the left, our plot. This is my view towards Rem Koolhaas design on the other side. This is Rem's view to my area in the future. It's orchestrated by this, say, square field where we dream of being surrounded by this, but made by tulips, made by wisteria, made by ivy, made by bamboo, and to use that techniques. Every plot has another plant, so that and I don't care about the architecture. That's the good thing, because they're covered by plants. So there's not a discussion about design at that moment. A great concert hall, a beautiful basketball field. That's the best nightclub I can imagine, or the best hotel. And so there will be this coexistence of these plants and in different ways till we have this as a dream. So how to do that? Here is this handkerchief that we throw over this landscape. This is the floor plan of that mini city that we make. These are my clients again. And if I look here, the alphabet from Seoul is extended. So all the species are in it. And from A till Z are ordered. So yes, that I don't have a discussion, because landscape architects can talk for hours on composition. And this is not done. That is also, so this is my buildings over there and my landscapes that are shown for this exhibition. So we need to script, because you don't know how many plants you get. So here are all the sizes that we already did in the green dip, and how many families are in the letter A to, and then we do from A till Z one linear, say, algorithm to blend them in. So you see the different species, and we could do that on time, so that gradually you have the position of the X sector or the A sector. So buildings similar. Let's do prefab modules so that you can facilitate the plants and that they will continue over the element. This is the test that I was talking about the pots of trees. This is done with the Technical University in Delft and Wageningen to make that doable and to see how that would be done. So you see some of the renders of the buildings and the species that are there. Public spaces, you see how it's under construction. So we designed paths that could be wider, because normally the firemen dictate everything. So how to make them more vegetal. We use that technology so that they can be wider if needed, and very narrow, and then they're planted. Bridges are with, like, indeed the concrete that you're doing here also, to make it more biological and more plant-based oriented. Gardens continue over the highway, made by rest products, and buildings are coming in. They're not so good, the buildings, I must say that. You cannot control everything. This is but some of them are quite good, because they use here the birch wood of the birch section. The developer was awful in the end. The central building was maximized awful. This was the social housing done by a local architect. It looked like this. It could be anywhere. This could look like New York, could be China, whatever. So what can you do at that moment? So the only thing of its central position, we could script basically the projection of all the plants on the facade. So here you see the plants on the right side and how they come to the facade, and you get this tableau of the whole, and you perforate out the windows, and then it's there. So that's what it somehow shows a little bit, the collection of this Floriade in itself. There are buildings like the Art Center. I love it because I show you that's floating, because we explored with artists a little bit on what this is a beautiful city, no? How that can be imagined, how animals, everybody could be part of it. How the mechanics of such a city is explored by this kind of artist that did that. Or how they could also extend into the sky by flying objects, and how it could lead to new farms that are part of this installation. This is my dream, that came out of the Floriade. So the Germans made a good collage on the new future cities. Finally, I would love Ulm or Hamburg, how they were showing. Amsterdam made a pavilion which was completely made out of loam and clay and shells and plants. I mean, this is Piet Oudolf 2.0 in a way. But here, the mixture is not like on the High Line with very specific pieces. No, wildflowers, wild forests are also like that. But how to manage that? That's what your landscape group should do, to make the new melange on, so you see examples of that. We have the rehouse, that's basically only testing material that are bio-based from seeds and from burned components and from this kind of stone, something that you do here also in and the school is then used or abused to use that technique maximally. We made wooden pixels to test a little bit how that could be flexible. I think if you make the most important is the joint, as you all know, and that should be made out of stainless steel in order to have it completely flexible, unfortunately. So maybe you can do it also in wood, but it's a kind of good thing. So what is next? So this is just finished. That's closed now. So here we prepare now the urban plan for the coming time to get it now inhabited. So, and then these tests find a way to deal with it. So just to say, it is possible. That's what I only wanted to say. I end with an epilogue, because I said it was a road to biotopia. And I didn't show biotopia, because it's complex, biotopia, to deal with it. And as you are doing also this year, new kind of concretes that are made with different kind of glues and different kind of wood chips to give you a kind of a solidification. That's what we do in the office and in the Y factory. But I would like to think with you to end with is from now to then. This drawing I love still, in a way. One of my colleagues had made that, in a way, how a city could grow into this. So let's think about it. What are the processes of the coming 100 and 200 years that we can expect in terms of printing, computation, DNA developments? And let's imagine what that could be. So cellulose, 3D printing is happening. Other kind of plastics can make out of that. So the 3D printing will lead for the coming 100 years, hopefully, to an insane biological operation. It's not only print, it's also unprint, which becomes possible, important to do that at the same moment as a separate program. So that might lead that buildings can transform with printing and unprinting over a certain time. If we do that also with this other way of building, and we steer it through these kind of characters, then gradually also that could attack our cities, and we make other kind of, say, compositions. If we imagine skins that can breathe, there are already this kind of, say, amalgams, and we paint it on the coming 200 years, what we have to ask our industry to do it, then gradually we can make this cushion out of our cities. If we also make the self-healing concrete more realistic, and we need this kind of series of products to do that. So all the students trying to investigate what should we ask to the building industry to get it done, and then we can indeed repair our concrete in different kind of shapes. If we add algae to it, then maybe new kind of algae could produce that energy and would lead gradually to a city which looks like this and smells like hell, but it could be kind of beautiful. If we then use, say, other kind of mushrooms for it, we could imagine that that also could be combined and leading to this kind of, say, compositions as such. And I forgot, of course, this momentum in the story that if we also mitigate our plans, that gradually from Stefano Boeri, it will lead to a kind of insane kind of hippieism that we could imagine in our countries. So what is next? Just some, what we try to do with the Academy of Arts, you are Beaux-Arts, you told me. So here, this is future bodies, what can happen also with our clothing and our skins in biotech, in robotics, in 3D printing where we need it, and in automation. Then I think it's nice with Iris van Herpen, which I adore as a fashion designer, to see how this is a portrait of a skin, how we can start to imagine this is a dress, how we start to imagine how the dress will react on the body, and in the end becomes better than our buildings to do that. Is it happening also in our business? This is a scan of the valley, just to give you an idea how close we are to Iris van Herpen. So that how much MEP are we not making, and how kind of spaces MEP already take. Why don't we make one building? I mean, this is better than Richard Rogers ever did to show it in some places. Would you like to live in this? This is how we live in, and how we, but if we make it more transparent, so I want to do it somehow at certain places. It's all about properties that we give to our material. And here, some of the inventions of speculative inventions that are done in the matrix, that we can start to collaborate with certain inventions. I mean, certain DNA can glow, can become light, and can be still give energy to at the same moment. So this needs a kind of bio blend. So from the singular inventions, which we try to do, which the drawing of the valley was part of it, this relationship between algae or new kind of algae that have more properties, I think that's what we are trying to do at the moment. You see here again a list, that like my wish list to the mayor. Here I want to sue this blending, that material that should be fully biological or recyclable. It should give light when we want. It should grow, but it should can also bend, and it can create space. It should woodify at a certain moment to stabilize, and it should loosen up when desired. So if we can combine that, then we can imagine a kind of biomatter that helps this cycle, that somehow transforms our city gradually into this kind of matter, I would say, this biomatter. And how it looks like, I don't know. These are first tests the last weeks in Delft to see which material helps the other. How could that be? Inspired by that Floriade of mini films to do that. Of course, in the end, it should look like this. That is what we did in the Light Festival in Prague, to make a kind of a suggestion of that sponge that we could imagine. And then I think gradually we could do another kind of planet that activates our skin around it. And maybe then we can do something that this planet becomes again nicer. I end with this question about natural and unnatural that is going to take. Again, I started with this guy. And then now, if you look, what he describes of biology that enables, culture forbids, is what and from a biological perspective, nothing is unnatural. And it's polemic, I know, but that creates, I think, maybe a momentum soon that we can call this the age of biology to be done. And with that, I hope to give you, like a road track on that to this biotopic interpretation, because I had to talk about the future city as you described in this poster. Thank you very much. The questions, please, and yells. I don't. Yes, please go.
So thank you very much for that. Yeah, thank you very much. It's really inspiring so much. But my question is, you mentioned about the receipt and the receipt. Along the recently, somehow positive. It's like on that kind of good side, something like extra structure, some long hands and the irrigation system for water protection. Somehow also some others. You know, the cost may somehow always the bad. So I just want to ask you, how do you even look at those kinds of typology, even kinds of the research and strategies about what is the most efficient strategy to be like maintenance systems and that kind of thing?
You answer, I mean, it's a very Asian way of saying it, to be honest, because about efficiency, I like it. But it's, of course, it costs more money, true, and you need to maintain. And caretaking is not a bad element in our culture. If we can, so for the valley, I need 2 landscape architects continuously on the project, which is same. I mean, in the High Line is the same, more or less, per cubic meter of soil. That is what you can more or less. Is that expensive? We put it in the rent of the apartments, so they pay like 10 euros extra per month to do it. So that is a bit. Is that outrageous, as you suggest? No, I wouldn't say that. But it's a problem of our time, how to grow towards a sustainable city. I mean, I know planting is a part of that, and I exaggerate at that moment, but it takes a while to get us prepared for that. And so the law that we now do in Rotterdam, that the roof should be heavier, becomes a law, and again then you get used to it. That's so when do you protest also? That's so you have to think about it, because it's easier if a developer says I cannot do it. Yeah. But again, think about the 8% that's in the margins of the developers that you sometimes can use for something. That's your choice where you put it in. So that is done. But when you were asking, I had a discussion recently about energy. That's another subject. Because of the war, quite a substantial element, especially in Europe, to do that, but see that also the transformation in the Saudis in the nearby future, what to do with that. So there's an hypothesis. What happens if energy is for free? And when could that happen? That would solve a lot. Would be less wars, for instance. So if I calculate the price of all conflicts and put that into that development. Yes, it takes a moment. We have to make batteries. We have to make hydrogen solutions, and I know we have to find other kind of materials to do that. So it's not there yet. But imagine that you can do anything you want because energy is. And we have this source. Don't forget about it. The sun is quite eternal, hopefully, for a while. So, and we're talking about harvesting it now from the moon, or to have it in the outer skin of our planet. And we start now with the moment with that in our deserts. I'm not a specialist in that, but I must say, and this comes from energy suppliers. They said, imagine it will be free. I found it a genius almost, because that would liberate exactly that discussion that you would have. So how to make it natural that you are going to do, that takes some efforts, I know. And it's that discussion in Shenzhen, it took 10 years to get now the first green buildings over that, because typhoon and of course maintenance. But now I'm not sure, but so much heat stress that city is going through. So sometimes I think we have to help the disasters a little bit. We have to be apocalyptic, then make it worse, in a way. Make it more stone. They will be quicker than to talk too long about it. That sometimes I have that kind of reflection. So it's a super good question that you do it. Well, we have a choice. You can also not do it. That is, it's up to you, in a way, where to dedicate pieces of your career towards it. And then, yeah, for better and for worse, you go through things. So I'm curious what you are going to offer.
I actually like the idea. That's why I found sometimes hard to these people. So that's why I was always like how I structural shops like that. Being developer that we can do it. Yeah. Yeah, and I also like really wondering what's the role of architects can impacting the government policy, because it said that, like in Rotterdam, like the roof, like the law said that has to be thicker so that it can has those kinds of green move. So I just curious how we as architects can impact the policy like that. It's very hard in the United States. Code is hard to change.
To give an example of the strengthened roofs, also Switzerland has it because of the snow, but actually helping also the green roofs and the buffer enormously in Zurich and other places. So, and Norway has it also because of the Green Roof Act. So it's not that unique, but it's on that cluster of the world. But if especially when China or India can do it, then I would be very, very happy, honestly. Yes, please.
Okay. How do you think of the ChatGPT, not ChatGPT, I mean the artificial intelligence in imaging generation? A lot of people just use that kind of new technology to generate the architectural projects. So I just want to know, what we would do with that kind of new technology.
Well, somehow, what I try to... somehow we are making also AI while constructing this whole valley facade is completely scripted and completely algorithm. Otherwise, I couldn't convince the client how many costs I could do, how can I do with the wind, and then of course he says immediately, and privacy, yeah, privacy also fine. So you can calculate the privacy. So it's super good, and there are not so many offices that already do a lot of scripting. I don't know your office, how many scripters you have, but it's growing. And then we were doing it already for a while. And it's one of the things, and I think your school is basically already dedicated to it. You have to learn that yourself. So the collaboration with, like I was saying, hacking Google Maps. Yeah, we did that simply also with a group in order to get that information. We didn't ask them to take ages. So to do that, you have to organize yourself a little bit to participate in this AI environment. And of course, there are a lot of things to say in AI. It's a conglomerate of mini devices, ultimately. So it sounds intimidating. And as architects, we are not so good as the computer science guys and girls. So you have to work with them. And they love it. If you could give this kind of tasks to them. Tomorrow they're in your office to deal with that. But again, this is all like, how is it paid? This kind of AI development. Google has more money than MVRDV, to be honest, and so you do it on a kind of startup basis. We are endless startups in a way in our development. We didn't become rich for that, or we forgot to patent it, but it's like that's the part of the reality to see. So I do think it has a big role. We had a fantastic discussion with Husqvarna. Maybe you know Husqvarna. Husqvarna is these cutting machines for lawns and for hedges. And so the next one are flying. So that's because of how to maintain the valley. And we can do it or by alpinist girls and guys that do it, or we have this kind of flying scissors that we are doing. You will see it next year. So that's Which is kind of funny that they saw the pictures of this and of the building, and they wanted to but that kind of persons, you can certainly do this test and to have it. If it will work out, we'll see. But I love it to have that. Then this kind of funny dream of these students that made this kind of city that is built out of this kind of flying objects is closer sometimes than you think. And you are in a country here where you have a kind of gigantic amount of people that can help you on that. So don't be again. If you are afraid of AI. No, you are as afraid, how can I say that? Of course there are a lot of things to test and how to safety to get that involved. And fair enough. Also politically is quite a substance to get. I mean, I don't like the word smart cities. I think that's a temporal, we did that for 5 years, done. That is because it has failures. It is, it says that certain things, intuition, for instance, or liberty is less smart. I don't know. I'm very skeptical about that word. How to mention then that future cities in a way? I propose this biological variant in a certain moment. For me, it's completely natural that AI is part of that. And that helps us to steer this complexity of both people as animals or as nature to find a way to that. And there's a very simple questions. I mean, storing the water, like we need to, please do. Otherwise, and don't know exactly the situation in the US, but for Europe, it's a major operation to get that done. So then, of course, buildings should help. That is, for me, so natural. This helps then also again. That's one of the parameters that comes in. But yes, then I have to make a whole equipment for when is it low, when is it high, when is it dengue proof, or when there are mosquitoes coming in that roof. So is that a smart city at that moment? Or am I making a kind of another kind of city? Is what it that I am not sure about. It's maybe a long story about AI, and I'm among the architects, I think, quite a technocrat when you compare that to others, but we come from a generation that loves it. Yeah. I had a nice discussion with Lars Spuibroek, who was like the same age as me. You don't know him, maybe. Yeah, he's in Georgia Tech. So in the past, we were together editors of a magazine at the moment. And he was always the opposite of me, because he wanted to be the opposite. So he always called me the Dutch structuralist, because I was like square in that way, and he was already doing. And we had a discussion last week through internet, say, well, what is it's all a matter about size, about pixel or voxel size. Or what we could discuss is that beyond the voxelization of our understanding, what are the linear components, the network that facilitates these voxels. So then I said to Lars, you make a new kind of structuralism. I don't see the difference. So that's what we are building together, I think, from different points of view. I think the whole parametric school from Greg Lynn, also, which I like, he's a friend. There is definitely a global culture coming on working on the planet. I see also the culture of the middle class is more coming. We all wish that we are middle class to get the polarity a little bit out of the world. So that has also its consumerism behind it. So culturally we change, and we have a tendency, because of our collective desire to survive, and that these are part of the elements. On the other hand, I love variety. biodiversity. So that's a culture can help sometimes to be to have that, and I don't know exactly. Honestly, I'm very bad in that. Even if I work all over the world, and I listen, I see things, I try to extend history somehow, or I try to blend it in. And there's another chapter. I didn't talk about that today, which could be an interesting subject to discuss that, how on certain places that could be combined. Culture is also often climate connected. Inuits behave in some way because you don't do it here. And so that is it's a good way to find a way with that. But I don't like cultures which cannot give a reason. Sometimes with Feng Shui teachers, I really have troubles sometimes to understand why they say it. And so there are some Feng Shui teachers that are more clear, that you can negotiate with, and others are so strict without understanding. So maybe it says more about my stupidity than, and I miss a certain kind of intelligence to do it. But in general, I must say people like, why is, I was wondering, because there are many types of architects that work all over the world, but why us or why me is maybe a question. And I do think that certain kind of rationale or argumentative culture that I bring with me, I think with our office, somehow people appreciate that, wherever it is, to make mythical things, to make that more operationable. That's what we try to do a little bit, I think, or that what this technique is a little bit showing. I cannot explain it differently. Why would people like me in certain places? I have no clue, but this is probably what it is. So I told you, I mean, I have a certain naivety, anyway, I have a certain directness. I hate vagueness, and I think it doesn't make sense at all. And that is, culturally, sometimes it's very important. I mean, if you go to Norway and you want to build something, every meeting, you come in and they say, which means no. Right? So that took me months before I could accept that. That's like, so there are, and I think also like in Taiwan it's also similar, like or in mainland China it's also not always very clear. So yeah, that has to be overcome. So there, you could say it's culturally beautiful. I could respond to you in the same manner at that moment. That's but it intrigues me also. Huh? Again, I love biodiversity. I plead for cities that are different also, that they have another character, that you emphasize certain economies, that you emphasize certain kind of expression to treat with it. So it would be quite a nice research if you could start that here at the school to say what are the differences between the future cities, if it's Beijing or if it's New York. Please let me know in that way. And then beyond, say, the trap of cliches, please. So that's also, because I'm not going to write the new travel guide or something like that, which is full of, I mean, the Lonely Planet is the ultimate, say, domain of cliches. So take care about that. So that's, so that is what would be nice. But make a new Lonely Planet. That's my proposal.
One last question? Any other last question? Good. Thank you.